is the homepage for the Arizona State Library, which also includes sort of their archives and public records. I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview about where to click through to find some important resources about just how to find out and access government information in the state of Arizona. So the first place that you'll want to notice is we're here at the homepage, and it's just azlibrary.gov. It's really easy to find. If you click on branches, you're going to want to click on archives and then go over here to accessing Arizona public records. So this is a list that's going to tell you a little bit about what kinds of things count as public records. So certain kinds of personal records and personal information are actually public record in the state of Arizona. Court records, many of them are public, although sometimes if it's a juvenile court or it pertains to an adoption, then that would be sealed. And there are certainly some kinds of business records that are maintained in the state, although when you go down here below and we look at some of that information, you'll see that it's not as extensive as other states compile. That's actually really interesting too, because one of the things to note is that different states have different laws regarding what kinds of information is part of the public record. So generally speaking, it's always going to be certain kinds of personal records, court records, and then different kinds of business records, but there may be some slight differences between what's available state to state. This is a really handy webpage though, because it's going to give you some of the most common personal records that people would like to have access to, and then tells you sort of where in the what agency is responsible for it, and then usually how to get to it. So for instance, suppose that you are interested in births that had occurred within the last 75 years. So you're looking for what was someone's birthday? What was their birth certificate? Well, you want to go to the Department of Health Services and click on Vital Records, right? If it's older than 75 years ago, then you can either do the state archives, or it's possible that Arizona Genealogy Project would have some information that's available for you. Same thing with deaths, right? If you're thinking about finding out whether someone is actually divorced, then you're going to actually want to go to the clerk of the Superior Court for the county in which the divorce was filed. If you want to look at people access to information about driver's license and vehicle registration, that's going to be the MVD. You can also request people's car title information, different kinds of things like that. Marriage certificates are also publicly available through the clerk of the Superior Court in the county that they were filed in. You've got naturalizations of citizenship granted by the federal courts. You've got access to a lot of police records as well. Some police records are sealed, but if you go to the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, you can click there. And you can go to the specific call the police station and find out what could I have access to? Certain kinds of probate records, school records that track individual students they're maintained by the Department of Education, but those are not publicly available. However, you can get lots of information about school-wide data. If you want to search for a sex offender, right? Department of Public Safety. So you can really see that there are all sorts of different kinds of records that are accessible, but of course, they're stored in different places, and each of these places is more or less easy to find information. So when you're thinking about something real estate ownership records, well, then you would need to contact the county recorder's office for the county in which the property is located. So you can see there's a lot of ways in which one of the things that's most difficult about accessing government information is that it's stored by a variety of different kinds of agencies, all of whom have different sites and use different kinds of systems for storing information as well. So it can be really difficult to figure out where you need to go in order to find the information. And oftentimes, as we'll see when we're looking for my marriage certificate, that information can be a little bit buried in the bottom of the website. All right, so the other resource that I think is really important for students to be aware of, and this is another thing that also is available in most states, is that there is an Arizona Ombudsman Citizens Aid. I always say that word a little wrong. Okay. So here, this is an organization that's sort of apolitical, but they are required by law to make government more responsible to basically the people of Arizona. Primarily what they're focusing on are things like open meeting and public records law. That because we live in a democracy, there's a sense in which the governments have to be held accountable to us. And if we don't have access to information or people are not able to come to different kinds of meetings, then it becomes really difficult for people to sort of exert power or influence over the political process, even though it's supposed to be responsive to us. So one of the benefits of living in a democracy is that we have access to all of this information. But of course, as you saw from the page prior, it can be really difficult to figure out where it is. So that's where the ombudsmen come in. They sort of feel like, one, they can handle complaints against Arizona agencies, but a lot of the times, too, if you're having difficulty finding certain kinds of information or getting access to a meeting that you want to attend, say like your local state council is weighing on a resolution that you feel really strongly about, technically there's many meetings that you should be allowed to go to, and if that they're making it difficult for you to attend a meeting, then you can file a complaint with the Arizona Ombudsman. Because that's one of their roles, one of the things that they do is actually compile a list of different kinds of helpful resources. So websites and links and state agency toll-free numbers. So they'll give you the resources to figure out how it is that you can contact different kinds of people. So now when we go back here to the Arizona State Library's page again, I also did want to point you to this link in the upper left-hand corner. It's obviously very small and kind of hard to read, but if you click on it, it is a list and contact information and websites for all of the Arizona State Department, like Arizona State agencies. So you can search for a particular agency. You can see all of them listed here. And these are all just Arizona agencies. And if you go, it'll look to their website, it'll show you their address. In some cases, you have to kind of go to the website to get the contact information, but at the very least, it'll tell you where it is. And it can be a little bit difficult to figure out what it is that they are responsible for compiling. But if you have something that you think might, like a query that you think might have relevant information, it's always a good idea to see if there's some agency that might actually have some extra information that you need. There's actually just a ton of government information. Like, right, we can look up here, it's like the Board of Podiatry Examiners. That's like people who, like, Board of Podiatry are foot doctors. And the examiners are the people who sort of license foot doctors, like, right? They make sure that everybody's staying up to date and that they're, like, licensed to be a podiatrist, right? That's such a specific, small thing, and yet there is a board of people who are, authorized by the state of Arizona to sort of make sure that everything's going okay with podiatry. And so these are just all going to be different kinds of information that you can access. Like all of these places are collecting information and storing it of certain kinds. So again, it's really difficult often to figure out which agency is going to be holding different kinds of information. But there's just a ton of different kinds of public information that's being collected by the government all the time. And with a little bit of poking around, you can actually access quite a bit of information.